Exposed. The Vatican's Sinister Murder Squad 7 spine-chilling rules you must never break. The lights flickered as Jessica walked home from the late shift at the diner. The cheerful hum of Maplewood's barbecues and block parties felt like a world away. She took a longer route tonight, her gut urging her to steer clear of the ordinary roads. Her breath quickened when she noticed a house draped in dark curtains, its windows like soulless eyes glaring into the night. As she passed, whispers oozed through the cracks of the door, chilling her to the core. People she recognized, neighbors, friends gathered inside, their voices entwined in an ominous chant. Something was not right. Pulse pounding, she shook off the cold grip of dread. It was just her imagination, right? Maplewood was supposed to be safe. But shadows roamed through her mind, lingering like unwelcome specters. Days morphed into an escalating whirlwind of work, the diner's fluorescent lights becoming part of her daily nightmare. With every customer she served, unease simmered just below the surface. She plastered on her smile, but it felt false. That sense of something dark lurking escalated as Lily's mischievous quips filled their small apartment, a stark contrast to the mounting anxiety clouding Jessica's heart. Then one quiet night, gripping her phone, she read something that sent her spiraling. A missing girl, a bright Maplewood teen who vanished without a trace. The chilling details racked her with fear, a close-knit community, void of answers. Panic clawed at her, tight and unyielding. And then, just as unnerving, an invitation from Ms. Aaron, the reclusive neighbor. A special event, it read, tinged with secrecy. "Mom, can I go?" Lily's voice cut through, excited and naive. "No, I don't like the sound of it," Jessica snapped, yet the urge to dismiss her own fears haunted her. If she showed worry, it would only frighten Lily more. Hours turned into a suffocating silence as night enveloped the town. The longer Lily stayed out, the more Jessica's heart raced. She dialed and dialed, voices of indifference spilling from the authorities' lips, her pleas ignored. No one cared. Hours slipped by like grains of sand in an hourglass, each second heavy with dread, until reality crashed down. Lily was gone, and fear morphed into horrified resolve. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation clawed at Jessica as she delved deeper, hiding her frantic search beneath the surface of mundane tasks. The truth was darker than she could have imagined. A web of local families tied to the Sinister group, dreadfully named the Vatican's Sinister Murder Squad. The frayed threads of Maplewood's serenity were snapping away one by one, stitching a horror she had never known in her peaceful town. Every interaction with her neighbors morphed into moments laden with tension. The friendly smiles turned into twisted grins. A simple wave became a signal of quiet malice. Just as she gathered enough courage to confront her truths, the phone vibrated violently against her palm. A message, cryptic, taunting. "Stop searching, or you'll lose more than you can imagine." Cold sweat dripped down her spine. Jessica was tumbling down a dark spiral, teetering on the edge of an unspeakable void. As shadows stretched across her once safe town, she couldn't shake the growing fear. They were watching. And soon, the question looming over Maplewood would not be, "Where's Lily?" but who was next? Jessica's heart hammered in her chest as she clutched her phone, the taunting message burning her palm. Shadows flitted through her mind alongside thoughts of Lily. Despair morphed into resolve as panic and fear twisted together. She couldn't afford to be drawn into the web of intimidation. The threats meant for her would not keep her silent. She had to act. The air outside felt thick and oppressive, a living thing that wrapped around her throat as she stepped into the chilly night. The usual hum of the town felt like a distant echo, now its warmth snuffed out by the dark unseen. Each step felt like a descent into a pit of despair, the very ground beneath her softening in dread. She forced herself towards Ms. Aaron's house, determination blending with trepidation. The ramshackle property loomed ahead, cloaked in darkness. The whispers that had dripped through the door echoed in her mind as she approached. each word writhing like a snake, trying to pull her closer. Heart racing, she pressed her ear against the door, straining to hear. Sacrifice must be made. A voice intoned low, Jessica's breath caught. Sacrifice? Her stomach twisted, and she staggered back, nearly tumbling down the creaky steps. She needed information. She needed to find Lily. With shaky hands, she decided to break the silence by knocking. 3 loud raps echoed into the shadows, a challenge, a gamble, moments stretched like hours. Just as she contemplated turning away, the door creaked open. Ms. Aaron stood there clad in an old, threadbare shawl, her eyes glinting with something unsettling. "Jessica," she said, her voice dripping sugar-coated condescension. "What a surprise. I need to talk to you." Jessica managed, her stomach churning at the sight of that smile, too wide, too expectant. "Come in. It's warm inside." Inhaling deeply, she stepped inside, the door shutting behind her with a finality that triggered her instincts. The room was dimly lit, covered in dusty books and strange artifacts. Flickering candles threw eerie shadows against the walls, twisting the air into a spectacle of lurking shapes. It was claustrophobic, suffocating, a space caught in a rift where time stood still. "Do you know about the disappearances?" Jessica spat, adrenaline fueling her resolve. "I need to find my daughter." Ms. Aaron's eyes widened, her grin fading ever so slightly, but still maintaining an unsettling calm. "You really shouldn't have come here, dear. Curiosity can be dangerous." A chill crept up Jessica's spine. "Where is she?" Her voice quavered but broke through, shaky yet unwavering. "Why do you think we gather? Why do you think we seek out the whispers?" Ms. Aaron stepped closer, her breath mingling with the candlelit shadows. "You've stumbled into something ancient, dear. Some things are better left alone." Sudden rage burst within Jessica. "You know something. You must." But the woman's gaze turned cold, a flash of something sinister igniting in her eyes. "To seek truth is a path lined with blood. Are you prepared to pay the cost?" A sharp sense of dread washed over her as she realized her foot was already in a trap. The walls of the room seemed to close in, the shadows growing wild, writhing in response to the rising tension. Suddenly, loud banging echoed on the door. "Ms. Aaron!" A voice cried sharply, demanding entrance. Jessica's heart raced as she darted a glance at the door, her instincts screaming to flee. Who was behind the door? More of them? Or was it help? Uncertainty clawed at her insides. She took a step back, pulse pounding violently in her ears. With the dark realization sinking in, her time was running out, she turned to face Ms. Aaron, desperate. "Tell me. Now." But Ms. Aaron's expression morphed. She was no longer the soft-spoken neighbor, but something monstrous, something full of malice. As the door splintered, Jessica's breath hitched. What awaited her in this nightmarish convergence of choices? The door burst open, revealing shadowy figures silhouetted against the light, hunters or protectors. In that frozen moment, a horrifying truth struck her. She had unearthed more than secrets of a missing girl. She had awakened something dark within Maplewood, and she wondered, was she prepared for the truth? Before Jessica could comprehend the shadowy figures, panic seared through her. The crackling wooden door fell inward as she instinctively jerked back, colliding against the cold, dusty wall. Fear wrapped around her like a vice, clenching tighter as she fought to find her footing. Light spilled into the room, cascading over Ms. Aaron, illuminating a face carved from shadows, a mask of ominous glee twisting her features. "Let them in," she hissed, voice low and inviting. "Let us see how brave you are." The figures stepped into the dim light, revealing 2 men cloaked in dark garments, their faces obscured under wide-brimmed hats. Their presence was suffocating, as if they carried the weight of lost souls. Both gazes locked onto Jessica, freezing her in place. Fear radiated from her skin, prickling at the back of her neck. "Are you the one asking questions?" one of them asked, voice smooth yet chilling, like ice scraping against stone. "Leave her alone," Ms. Aaron snapped, her fury a mere mimicry of earlier sweetness. "She doesn't belong here." The men exchanged glances, then smiled. It wasn't a comforting smile. "Belonging has nothing to do with it, dear." The second man stepped closer, reaching out a hand. "The truth, like a wolf, must be hunted at a cost." Jessica's breath quickened, her heart racing wildly in her chest. It was as if the atmosphere thickened, each heartbeat a countdown to oblivion. What cost? She demanded, fighting to gain control over her spiraling fear. The man grinned wider. The price for knowledge is steep, far more than you're prepared to offer. We're part of the covenant that accepts sacrifices. Jessica's thoughts spiraled. They had spoken of sacrifice. Was Lily caught in this sinister web? Was she one of those offerings? Waves of nausea crashed over her. Where is she? She shouted, desperate to break through their cryptic riddles. Sacrifice? A willing vessel? Ms. Aaron chimed, her voice dripping with delight. Oh, the things you don't know, the things you'll discover if you want to keep your child. The words slithered into her mind like a poisonous fog, bubbling anger and despair. You can't, Jessica cried, her voice trembling. You can't take her. But the men merely laughed, the sound echoing off the walls like thunder. We don't take, dear. We offer. A choice. The dark room pulsed as shadows danced malevolently at the edges of her vision. The flickering candles flickered more wildly, threatening to extinguish any remaining hope. She took a step back, feeling the wall behind her pressing close, her escape mirroring the constricting darkness wrapping around her thoughts. Choose wisely, the first man said, lowering his voice to a whisper that sliced through the heavy air. Will you pay the price to save your daughter? Or will you watch as the community sacrifices all that you hold dear? Jessica's mind reeled. Each option clawed at her insides, tearing her apart, the impossible choice between her integrity and Lily's safety. The chilling idea pulled her deeper into an abyss of horror. The door creaked behind her as she edged backward, her instincts blared their warnings. She could bolt, but what fate awaited Lily with those two men hovering so close? The air felt laden with unspeakable promises and dreadful consequences. What will it be? The second man asked, his eyes gleaming with haunting expectation. With her chest tightening like a noose, Jessica felt the cruel hands of destiny grip her. The deeper she delved into this darkness, the more questions bloomed like poisonous flowers in her mind. What truths laid hidden under layers of sacrifice? What twisted forces held the power over Maplewood? And in that moment, with shadows welcoming her into their fold, she realized she had to choose before her time ran out. As the candlelight flickered ominously, a new voice echoed from beyond the doorway. Stop. You can't do this. And suddenly, Jessica wondered who had entered the fray. Would this newcomer be the salvation she desperately sought, or simply another pawn in this nightmarish game? The chilling voice cut through the tension like a knife. Jessica turned, her heart hammering. Her eyes widened as a woman burst through the threshold, her figure framed by the doorway. Dark hair clung to her forehead, plastered by what looked like rain. But it wasn't rain. She was soaked in sweat, and maybe something else, something dark. Lucille. Ms. Aaron's voice dripped with thinly veiled hatred. You should know better than to meddle. Lucille took a step forward, casting aside caution. I won't let you take her, she declared, her voice unwavering. You have no right to decide her fate. Jessica's mind raced. Lucille had been a shadowy figure in town, a whisper of someone who opposed Ms. Aaron. What was she doing here? The flickering candlelight cast an erratic glow between the two women, amplifying the mounting tension in the room. Your bravery is commendable, but misplaced, the first man replied, his icy tones slicing through the heated air. This is not your place, nor your battle. Lucille looked at Jessica, her eyes fierce and pleading all at once. Listen to me, whatever they promise you, it's a lie. The men whispered to each other, their faces obscured by darkness, yet their laughter rang out like music of the damned. The weight of their presence sank deeper into the room, wrapping around them like the creeping vine of despair. What price are you willing to pay? The second man taunted, tilting his hat back slightly. His eyes glimmered with a twisted delight. Perhaps her soul? Shut up. Jessica screamed, her voice cracking. You think I'd let you take her? Lucille stepped fully into the room, her gaze shifting to the shadows that swirled ominously at the corners. You think you understand what this is? This is a game for them, a dark game that has played out throughout history. She took another bold step, but faltered as the air grew thick with malevolence. Every refusal makes the weight heavier. What do you know about it? Ms. Aaron snickered, the glee on her face turning grotesque. Jessica's gut twisted. Were they really playing a game? Lives dangled by threads, fears woven into a tapestry of despair, and she was a puppet on their stage. If I choose something, anything, will you leave us alone? Her voice trembled, but she fought against it. Choose. The first man raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Choice is an illusion. You will always owe a part of yourself for knowledge. That is the covenant. Lucille stepped closer to Jessica, her voice urgent but soft. You can break the cycle. They don't control you. This is not a choice, it's manipulation. But before Jessica could gather her thoughts, the shadows behind the cloaked figures shifted. A low growl reverberated through the room, coaxing forth chills that crawled up her spine. The darkness seemed to writhe, responding to her burgeoning fear. And then, without warning, a sudden crash erupted from beyond, a deafening sound that shattered the air. What had broken through? A figure suddenly loomed behind Lucille, its eyes glowing gleefully, hungry for more than just answers. I wouldn't turn your back? The first man whispered, his voice low and hypnotic. The tension snapped, their laughter rolling back and forth like thunderclouds about to burst. Look out! Jessica screamed, her instincts flaring as she lunged toward Lucille. But would it matter? The fear clawed at her heart, and the room began to close in, pulse racing as the shadows threatened to consume them all. Could Lucille be the savior she hoped for? Or did a darker fate loom over them both? As the ravenous shadow surged forward, Jessica felt the weight of her decision surge within her like a tidal wave. This was no longer just a choice. It was a fight for survival. What do you truly desire? The words hung heavy, the candlelight flickering like fingers grasping at hope. Jessica's world had spiraled, and destiny had woven its menacing tapestry. What lay in wait for them when the shadows unveiled their dreadful truths? Jessica's heart hammered in her chest as she lunged forward, the deafening crash still echoing like thunder in her ears. The figure behind Lucille loomed closer, its eyes shimmering with a predatory glint. It wasn't just a shadow. It felt alive, pulsing with a thirst that seeped into the air, darkening everything around them. Lucille's expression shifted to one of horror as she realized the full extent of the threat closing in. No, stay back, she shouted, raising her hands in a futile attempt to ward off the encroaching darkness. The men laughed, a sound twisted and cruel, as they stepped aside to reveal the grotesque creature behind her. It was a hulking mass, a silhouette that crawled on all fours, its limbs impossibly long, stretching into shadow. The air grew thick with a chilling stench, a mix of wet earth and something more foul, something that reeked of decay. Did you think you could defy us? The first man hissed, a smile dancing on his lips that seemed to carve deeper into the pale skin of his face. He stepped closer, reveling in the fear radiating from both women. This is what happens when you meddle in affairs far beyond your understanding. Jessica's instincts screamed at her to run, to escape the suffocating terror that threatened to pull her under. Yet something or someone rooted her to the spot. The shadow seemed to quiver, hungry, its gaze fixated on her, as if it could taste her fear. You're wrong. She found her voice, shaky but defiant. I want to be part of your twisted game. Lucille turned to Jessica, desperation etched on her face. You don't understand. You can't fight this alone. But there was no time to hesitate. The shadow was moving, gliding toward them, and its growl morphed into a deafening snarl that echoed around the cramped room. Vibrating through the floor like a tremor as the air crackled with tension, Jessica felt something shift within her. Something powerful and dormant stirred, fighting against the shackles of fear. I refuse to let you take me. She challenged the darkness, her voice rising above the cacophony. The creature paused, inching closer, and the flickering candlelight revealed an array of teeth, jagged and dripping. The men stared, momentarily taken aback, their amusement faltering. Such passion, such defiance, the second man mused, his icy features twisting into a smirk. But you have no idea what you're up against. But Jessica sensed an opening, the tension in the creature's body thickening, an opportunity to strike back. Lucille, we need to work together. Focus on it. Together they channeled their energy, empowering one another with resolve. It was a fragile bond, shaking like the candle's flame, but it unified their fear into potential. Every instinct within Jessica surged forth, focusing on the terror that had menaced them, transforming it into a weapon. In a split second, the growl from the creature morphed into something more anguished, an eerie howl that resonated with the walls of the room. It recoiled, as if feeling the force of their combined will. Now, Jessica shouted, lunging toward the entity, hoping to push through the veil of darkness that cloaked it. But just as they were ready to confront their attacker, an impenetrable fog rolled in. The world around them dulled, the piercing light scattered into fragments, replaced by an enveloping darkness thicker than night. Panic surged through Jessica as she felt Lucille's grip slip away. "Lucille," she cried, but only silence met her call. Desperation clawed at her throat. Where had her ally gone? Was she lost to the maw of this insatiable darkness? Suddenly a laugh erupted, cold and slick like oil. The men stood half-melded into the creeping shadows, their eyes glinting with malevolence. "Welcome to the game, dear Jessica. You thought you were playing to win? There are no winners here, only players and prey." Jessica's breath quickened. Trapped in this shifting realm, terror coursed through her veins. She could barely move, fear gripping her tight. Doubts screamed in her head. What had she unleashed? The shadows twitched, pulsating, with a life of their own, and a chilling realization settled in. Her fight had only just begun to eye in the chilling silence that enveloped them. A faint whisper echoed through the chaos, tantalizing and ominous, asking the question that hung in the air. What price are you willing to pay to survive? The darkness pressed against Jessica, a suffocating weight that crawled across her skin. She squinted, her eyes straining to pierce the thick veil around her. Each breath felt like a struggle, cold air biting into her lungs and clutching at her soul. The laughter of the men hung in the air, mocking her, a sinister melody that wrapped around her like chains. "Lucille," she screamed again, the sound swallowed up by the abyss. Panic settled like a lead weight in her gut. Where was her friend? Had the creature dragged her into the shadows? Suddenly, a surge of light sliced through the fog, illuminating a patch of the room. Jessica squinted towards it, seizing the brief moment of clarity. She felt an urgency rising, bright and fierce. "I can't lose this." With trembling hands, she pushed forward, desperate for an escape route. Vision sharpened by fear, she darted past twisting shapes that hissed and slithered just out of sight. Flashes of the creature's grotesque form loomed at the edges of her awareness. Each snarl sent jolts of icy dread spiraling down her spine. The air shifted, an unsettling pulse of energy dancing across her skin, and she felt the sense that something was watching her. Jessica turned sharply. Behind her, the creature loomed closer, its jaws dripping with dark sludge. The flickering light caught a glimpse of those twisted teeth, glistening like tiny daggers against the consumed shadows. But something flickered inside her, a spark of defiance igniting her soul. "You want to take me?" she shouted, a raw determination lacing her voice. The shadow halted, as if surprised by her outburst, swaying with an almost human-like curiosity. Then, she felt it. A whisper in the back of her mind, soft but insistent. "Trust yourself. Find the light." Was it Lucille speaking to her, lost somewhere in this nightmare? The hope rekindled within her. Jessica sprinted toward the fragile glow piercing the darkness, each step digging deeper into her will. A memory surged, the incantation Lucille had showed her, a chant meant to channel their fear into strength. Together, she whispered, rolling the words through her thoughts. Just then, another growl echoed from the shadow, more vicious than before. It lunged, claws reaching. Her pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out everything else. "You can have me," Jessica screamed, forcing the words into the sound of the chant. Light erupted around her, casting the darkness away like an awakening dawn. A tremor rippled through the entity, its form warping, shrieking in response as Jessica's conviction thrummed to life. But the light was fragile. It flickered as the shadows swarmed, eager to embed their presence back into her flesh. "Fight it! Fight!" Suddenly, all at once, the surrounding darkness thickened, absorbing the light, dragging her into despair. The laughter from the men twisted around her, sounding closer now. "You think you can stave off the inevitable? You've only begun to scratch the surface." The shadows coalesced, swirling, revealing glimpses of Lucille, her face twisted in terror, murmuring, "Don't trust them." "No," Jessica howled, reaching out, but the connection felt severed. She felt herself being pulled back into the depths, where the boundary between fear and reality blurred. Then a pulsing sensation surged through her chest. It was her heartbeat, powerful and steady, in defiance of the nightmare. She closed her eyes, focused, and in that liminal space between dread and hope, she summoned every ounce of willpower. I will not be your prey. And in the darkness, a shuddering silence fell. Was it resignation, or something else? The creeping fog began to lift, revealing ashen walls, a ghost of the familiar room. But a new sound broke through. Dragging footsteps, heavy and relentless, echoed across the floor. A voice broke the silence, deep and gravelly, sending chills down her spine. Welcome back, Jessica. I hope you enjoy the game. Her heart dropped as she scanned the shadows, now aware of the true stakes. What would it mean to play by their rules? And then, without warning, a figure stepped forward, revealing a face she recognized, but could not trust. We're going to have so much fun. Jessica froze, the weight of realization crashing down on her. How deep did this game really go? As the shadows converged around her, closing in like a vice, a single thought screamed in her mind. What would she have to sacrifice to survive this terrifying ordeal? Panic clawed at Jessica's throat as the figure advanced. It was Daniel, Lucille's brother. His once familiar features now twisted under a layer of cold detachment, his eyes void of warmth. You didn't think I'd let Lucille play alone, did you? He grinned, a sharp, predatory smile. Where is she? Jessica demanded, her voice trembling but firm. Each word buzzed in the air like a challenge. His grin widened. Oh, she's south, close, very close. But you? You're the one I'm interested in right now. The shadows tightened, pulling at her like a tide. She stumbled back, desperation flooding her senses. If you're playing, then I'm not afraid of you. That only seemed to amuse him. Fear is the game, my dear. Let me show you the rules. The air thickened as he waved a hand, and the room shifted around her. Walls pulled inward, the ceiling dropped low, and an unseen force wrapped around her wrists like iron cuffs. The familiar laughter rang out again, echoing through the dim space, harmonizing with the heartbeat that was now pounding in her ears. You'll learn quickly, Daniel said, stepping closer, shadows crawling at his feet. The first rule, always trust your instincts unless it's about me. The tension in the room thickened. Jessica felt every nerve and on fire. What do you mean? Oh, you'll see, he crooned, his voice dripping with malice. And the second rule, never look too deep into the shadows. They will show you things you aren't meant to know. His eyes gleamed like shards of ice, locking onto hers as if searching for vulnerabilities hidden beneath the surface. Jessica forced her gaze away, aware that the darkness writhing behind him was alive, leaking into her mind, tempting her with unspoken horrors. What's the third? She pressed, unwilling to give him an inch despite the dread tightening around her. An eerie chuckle escaped him. The third? Well, that's easy. Never lose hope. It's the one thing that can crush you. And you will need it. The walls pulsed with anguish, each heartbeat reverberating with agony, bleeding shadows that seemed to flow like smoke at their feet. Jessica instinctively stepped back, but the darkness clung tighter, whispering lies in her ear. Hope's for the weak, Daniel hissed, undeterred. His presence suffocated her, every word drenched in cruel amusement. Rule number 4, sacrifices must be made. It's what makes the game exciting. She gasped at the realization, recalling what Lucille had said before everything had fallen apart. The desperation surged again. Lucille could be beyond reach, tethered in this play of shadows where trust was a currency she couldn't afford. No, Jessica shouted suddenly, a fire igniting in her eyes. I want to play this game with you. Ah, but Jessica, you already are, he taunted, flicking his wrist. Dark tendrils snaked towards her, clawing at her armored resolve. The fifth rule is this: always remember, betrayal is around every corner, even from those who you think are safe. The haunting laughter crescendoed again, driving the whispers deeper into the recesses of her mind. Flooded with uncertainty, Jessica watched as Daniel paced around her, fizzing with confidence. Sixth rule, never underestimate your opponent. You have no idea what they're capable of. As he spoke, shadows began shifting in the corners, reforming into grotesque imitations of her fears. Faces loomed, denouncing her strength. One after the other, the shadow of Lucille, twisted and screaming, surged forth from the darkness, her eyes pleading for Jessica's escape. but her mouth formed unutterable words. The weight of her friend's agony stripped Jessica of breath. Anger surged in her belly, but it twisted with despair, threatening to overwhelm her. Finally, Daniel said, lowering his voice to a growl, "The last rule. There are no winners, only survivors and sacrifices." In that moment, the shadows shuddered, recoiling as if they too felt the precarious tension in the air. Jessica's heart raced as the understanding set in, binding her thoughts together like the threads of a fraying tapestry. As Daniel loomed closer, shadows extending to wrap around him, the air turned electric. "Will you sacrifice what's left of yourself to save Lucille?" Jessica's heart raced. Adrenaline blazed through her veins as dread and resolve intertwined in a deadly spiral. Was it possible she could escape this? But uncertainty loomed overhead, dark clouds closing in, and the shadows whispered of choices she would soon have to make. Would they lead her closer to finding Lucille, or deeper into a trap of utter despair? As darkness surged toward her, building toward a climax of blinding fear, she gazed into the uncertainty, determined to fight and to reveal what lay beneath the twisted layers of Daniel's sinister game. What would the next move be, and who would she sacrifice to survive? The darkness engulfed her, an almost sentient entity that whispered promises of despair. Jessica's breath quickened as she fought the tightening grasp of shadows around her wrists. Each pulse felt like a countdown, each heartbeat echoing Daniel's taunts in her ears. "Let us see how deep you'll sink," he mused, his eyes glinting like knives in the moonlight. The air was cold, sharp with dread, as he stepped back, letting the shadows spin around her like a noose. "What will it be, Jessica? You have a choice to make." Jessica surveyed her surroundings, adrenaline coursing through her system. It was like walking through a nightmare where every flicker of movement caught her attention. The walls pulsed with her fears, revealing distorted memories that flickered at the periphery of her mind, each one an echo of what she held dear. "Lucille," she whispered, but the name caught in her throat. The shadows vibrated with her voice, morphing into a cacophony of cries that shook her resolve. What if she wasn't strong enough to break free? "What do you want from me?" she shouted defiantly, but the sound felt like a paper-thin shield against the overwhelming dread. Daniel chuckled, leaning in close enough that she could feel his breath, colder than ice. "I want you to choose wisely, Jessica. Every choice has consequences and sacrifices." Suddenly, the darkness thickened, swirling with ghostly figures. Past acquaintances turned into grotesque parodies, their faces twisting into expressions of betrayal. Friends she trusted now loomed as phantoms, each holding a mirror reflecting her despair. Their mouths moved, but only distorted gurgles emerged, muffled cries begging her to choose them over herself. "No, stop it." The anguish in her voice cracked, frustration giving way to fury. The shadows recoiled as if stung by her words, but only for a moment. Daniel stepped back, watching, his eyes gleaming with his twisted fascination. "You see? You can already feel the weight of betrayal crushing you. What makes you think anyone will save you? Not Lucille, not even yourself." Jessica clenched her fists, the sharp edges of her rage cleaving through the fear that threatened to drown her. "I want to be a part of your sick game. I'll find Lucille, and I'll bring her back." "Ah, lost hope is such a sweet sound," he cooed mockingly, his tone draping the room in a sinister playfulness. "But remember, without sacrifices, there will be no escape." The shadows hissed in agreement, creeping forward once more, molding into a vortex of her deepest fears. Her pulse raced, heart pounding like a terrifying symphony as she strained against the dark magic that sought to wrap her in eternal despair. She thought of Lucille's laugh, the warmth of their friendship a lifeline in this swirling chaos. Could that alone give her the strength she needed? "Take them away," she screamed, but as she spoke, she felt a shift beneath her feet. The ground trembled as if acknowledging her defiance, and the shadows wavered, revealing brief flashes of light. From the edge of darkness, a figure began to materialize, a silhouette with familiar features. But Jessica couldn't focus, the light flickering made her dizzy. "Lucille?" Jessica breathed, hope and dread blending into a swirling mix. "Help me." Lucille's voice rang through the silence, a haunting echo. "Don't listen to him." But as soon as the image solidified, it twisted, morphing back into Daniel's sinister grin. "Oh, dear Jessica, that's not how this works. You must choose, remember?" Her heart raced, torn between the flickering image of hope and the sinister terror that was Daniel. Each second felt heavy, suffocating her with cruel weight. "Who will you save?" he taunted, the cold aura radiating from him tightening around her like rope. "You can't save them all. Choose or lose everything." As darkness rushed forward, devouring the fading sliver of light, Jessica realized that time was running out. What price would she pay to save Lucille, and was she ready to face the consequences of the choice she was about to make? With shadows closing in, the chilling question echoed in her mind, sparking a terrifying resolve. Would she risk her own soul to break free of this haunted despair? In that frenzied moment, she locked eyes with Daniel, knowing the real game had just begun. The shadows surged forward, inches from her. Jessica's instincts kicked in, igniting a surge of adrenaline that coursed through her veins. With every ounce of her strength, she surged upward, launching herself forward, breaking through the suffocating twilight that threatened to claim her. "Lucille," she cried, her voice cutting through the thick air like a desperate plea for salvation. Each step felt heavy and labored, as if the ground itself was rebelling against her defiance. But all she could focus on was the flicker of the light. Was it an illusion, or could it truly be Lucille? Daniel's laughter echoed through the abyss, a chilling melody that danced around her. "How noble," he sneered, moving gracefully as shadows twisted and contorted at his command. "But can you really outrun the truth?" The ghostly figures shifted, coming alive around Jessica, each face an amalgamation of her past. Friends now taunted her, faces twisted with mockery, belittling her attempts to escape. "You'll never find her," they sneered, their voices a haunting symphony of betrayal and despair. "Shut up," Jessica screamed, fists clenched tight as she steadied her breathing. She narrowed her eyes, forcing her focus onto the core of the light that quivered ahead. She knew if she didn't make a choice soon, this darkness would consume her entirely. Again, Lucille's silhouette flickered. "Jess, the choice is yours, but you have to act fast." That voice, the one she longed for, echoed through the void, cutting through the din of accusations and despair. But flickering visions of what she could lose rose to torment her. Her dreams of travel, laughter, and the simple warmth of friendship. Each one was a specter clawing at the edges of her mind, attempting to pull her back into their depths. The shadows clawed at her ankles now, wrapping around her legs like icy chains. "Make your choice," Daniel taunted, spinning around her as the darkness writhed, each whirl threatening to pull her deeper. "Time is not on your side, dear Jessica. It never was. What will it be? Sacrifice yourself for a ghost of hope." Then, just as she felt herself wobble on the edge of despair, a spark lit within her. Jessica, propelled by raw emotion, yelled, "I choose to save Lucille." The words escaped her mouth with an urgency that felt more liberating than binding. The darkness recoiled, as if struck by her boldness. She felt it start to dissipate, tendrils withdrawing as they howled in frustration. "Foolish girl," Daniel growled, his eyes narrowing. The shadows began to pulse and writhe, transforming into a cyclone of wrath. "You'll pay dearly for that choice." Jessica's heart raced, a surge of defiance fueling her resolve. She pushed through the swirling darkness, diving once more towards Lucille's light. With every ounce of will, she surged forward, each step igniting a fire in her chest. But then, in an agonizing twist, the shadows vanished, revealing a gaping void. The ground crumbled beneath her, and Jessica felt herself falling, plummeting into an endless darkness. She screamed, reaching for anything to grasp, desperately trying to cling to the remnants of hope. "Jess!" It was Lucille again, the voice piercing through layers of blackness, pulling at Jessica's consciousness. "Don't give up," but her voice faded, lost in the chaos as gravity turned her world upside down. Jessica's mind raced with terror. What awaited her below? Was it worse than the anguish she faced above? As the darkness consumed her, Jacob's laughter echoed once more, whispering ominous promises of suffering. "You think your sacrifice will save her?" Time was running thin. The final choice loomed large and foreboding in her mind, poised on the brink of devastation. Would she endure the depths of despair for a glimmer of light, or would she be consumed by the haunting void? The terrifying decision remained. Jessica braced herself for the unknown that lay ahead. Jessica's heart raced as the weight of her decision hung heavy in the air. She could feel the tendrils of darkness reaching for her, wrapping around her like a noose, threatening to drag her deeper into despair. But she had made her choice. She chose Lucille. Lucille! Jessica screamed, the name bursting forth like a flame igniting her resolve. I won't abandon you. The shadows shook in response, twisting and writhing around her as if they were alive, fuming at her audacity. Each heartbeat thundered painfully, echoing her defiance as she fought against the encroaching void. But the darkness flared, cloaking her in its suffocating embrace. Fool! Daniel's voice sliced through the chaos, molding into something more sinister. Your resolve means nothing here. Sudden anger coursed through Jessica, hot and wild, propelling her even further. I won't let fear control me, she shouted, summoning every ounce of courage within her being. In that instant, the shadows shrieked, recoiling like a wounded beast. The shimmering light that surrounded Lucille pulsed insistently, beckoning her forward. Without thinking, Jessica plunged into the radiant glow, drowning out the darkness that roared around her. She was not just running towards a light. She was sprinting toward hope, toward the possibility of saving her friend. Suddenly, the light exploded, enveloping her in warmth, pushing aside the chilling terror that had imprisoned her for too long. Jessica found herself standing face to face with a bewildered Lucille, her eyes wide and full of hope. Relief flooded over Jessica like a rushing tide, easing the tightness in her chest. Jess! Lucille gasped, rushing toward her, and they collapsed into an embrace that felt like a lifeline among the chaos. Tears streamed down Jessica's cheeks as fear melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of protection. I was so scared, she whispered, holding Lucille tighter. I thought I lost you. Lucille nodded, her voice trembling. We need to get out of here, but they're coming. Daniel he won't let us go easily. They turned to face the shadows that clawed their way back, the malicious laughter echoing at the edges of the light. You can't escape the truth, Daniel taunted, shifting through shadows, his mere presence suffocating. You think you can defy the darkness? Sacrifice never comes without a price. We'll pay whatever price it takes. Jessica shouted, defiance radiating from her every pore, gripping Lucille's hand tightly. You do not own us. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted. A power surged through their grasp, igniting the light around them, rooting them in their purpose. Together they stood strong against the impending shadow, drawing from the bonds that tied them as friends. The darkness hissed and recoiled like a wounded animal, thrashing against the light's radiance. True strength lies in the truth, Lucille exclaimed, her voice steadying under the weight of the darkness. We choose each other. A resounding pulse echoed across the void, the shadows twisting and swirling as the light grew brighter, blinding in its brilliance. The laughter turned to wails as Daniel's cruel expression turned on itself. No, you can't. But Jessica and Lucille surged forward, hands clasped tightly, pushing through the storm. A blinding wave of energy spiraled outward, echoing with the power of hope, despair, and sacrifice, and then, with a piercing explosion, it washed over them as the darkness shattered. The air felt fresh and electric, a rebirth of light that swirled in a kaleidoscope of colors. When the dust settled, they found themselves outside, beneath a canopy of stars, safe and warm, the horrors of the shadows stripped away. The weight on Jessica's heart lifted, and a laugh bubbled up, sweet and full of relief. We did it, she gasped, joy flooding through her. Lucille's face lit up with the same incredulity, both of them stepping back to take in the wonderful reality of their freedom. But then, a stirring caught their attention. In the distance, whispers began to fade into the night, like the dying echoes of battles fought. Jessica turned to Lucille, her voice low and serious. What about everyone else? All those we left behind? Lucille sighed, her expression a mix of hope and horror. We have to warn them. This isn't over. The resolve settled between them like warmth on a cold day. They took a breath and looked at each other, determination shining in their eyes. Together, Jessica murmured. Always, Lucille replied. And as they walked hand in hand, ready to face this new chapter. The stars above twinkled brightly, a reminder they were no longer alone. If you're as hooked on their journey as I am, this is the moment to truly support our story. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are just waiting for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this content rolling. Every click counts. Don't just stop here. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what's next for Jessica and Lucille. Let us keep the conversation alive. And finally, share this video right now with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. You need to take action. Stay part of this journey by showing your support.